In complex numbers, this diagram, usually in coordinate geometry, you're used to an x and a y axis. In complex numbers, this is called an Argand, A-R-G-A-N-D. Sit up. Take notes. This line, instead of calling it the y-axis, is called the imaginary axis, and this axis here is called the real axis. Going across on the x-axis, you label them. I'll take out 2 squares. That's 1, 2, 3, and going up on the imaginary axis, that's I, 2i, 3i. So minus I, minus 2i, minus 3i, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3. Right. So what a simple question you can get asked is to draw or plot. Plot means draw. Take it down. So plot these complex numbers. On the Argand diagram. Alright, so this is what a complex number looks like. The real bit is generally written first, and then the imaginary bit is written second. So a complex number looks like a plus bi. A is a number, you'll see now in a second. A is any number, and it could be positive or negative, or it could be a fraction, and b is another number. This is the imaginary bit. I denotes the imaginary bit, and no I denotes the real bit. Right, so an example there is, we'll start off with 2 plus 3i. First of all, you find 2 on the real axis, and then then you find 3i. So 2 and then up to 3i. In complex numbers, sometimes we give the complex number a name. So for example, that's Z1. So we put Z1 beside it. We use Z instead of X's and Y's in complex numbers. So there's an example, 2 plus 3i, Z1. So you label it on the graph. Next example, 3 minus I. Obviously you could write 3 minus 1i. So 3 minus I. And we'll call that complex number. They all have different names. Z2. So write Z2 beside it. Another example. If we want to write one over here, so let's say minus 2 plus 2i is in this quarter. So we'll call that Z3, that complex number. Minus 2 plus 2i. Call that Z3. So minus 2 plus 2i. And we'll draw one down here. Minus 3, minus 3, minus 3i. And we'll call this one Z4. Right?
So, why did you put a line through the Z?
Just so it's people might confuse it with a 2. Alright, so real and imaginary. Here's one other example. For example, you could have 2i. Alright, that's not written as a complex number because you need a real, you have to write down a real and an imaginary bit. So if you're given a complex number like 2i, if you're asked to write it as a complex number, write it in the form a plus bi. What you have to do is, well, there's no real bit, so you write down 0 plus 2i. So that's it, written as a complex number. We'll call that Z5. And we'll plot it. 0, so 0 on the real is there, plus 2i, so it's there. That's Z5. Okay? And we'll do another one. What happens if it's on the real axis? So Z6 we'll call it. So the real bit we'll call it 3. So if you be given a complex number, given the number 3, write that as a complex number. Well, it needs a real bit, that's the real bit. Does it have an imaginary bit? No. Plus 0i. So we'll call this one Z6. So that's it, that's 3 written as a complex number. 3 plus 0y. Z6.